You know, America is different than virtually any other nation because we were formulated by individuals who were interested in creating a free society, a society with choice, a society with values, a society with Judeo-Christian values. And those values made a big difference in the way that we treated people. Now, some people say, yeah, but you had slaves, so that negates everything you've ever said. Wrong. Because if you know anything about world history, you know every society had to deal with slavery. Every society since the beginning of time. And the fact that we had slavery does not make us particularly evil. It's an evil institution. But what was it that was really unique? It was the fact that we had so many people who vehemently opposed it, that we fought a bloody civil war and lost a large portion of our population to get rid of it. And that shows you the kind of values that we had as a nation. And that's what we need to teach our children, not that we're evil, horrible people. But going back to the cultural war, what happens when you turn the television on? You see the heroes as people who don't value traditional nuclear families. You see the heroes as people who meet someone who's attractive of the opposite sex, and the next thing you know, they're in bed together. Forget about marriage. Bed jumping, that seems to be the thing that's popular. And now you look at television and it kind of turns your stomach, but you even see men kissing men and women kissing women in the lips. And promotion of alternatives to the traditional nuclear family. And what message does that send to our kids? You know, there used to be some shame associated with having babies out of wedlock. Not anymore. It's gotten to be a normal thing. And are we creating the kind of traditional nuclear family that I was talking about, that the Brookings Institute and Princeton University find? Or are we creating something else that doesn't give the kids that nucleus, that foundation that will allow them to stand up for the values that have been ingrained in them? That's what we're facing today. That's what we need to be worried about. And what about anti-Semitism and racism? You know, people are not born anti-Semitic. People are not born racist. That is something that is taught to people. And we need to recognize that it's not a spontaneous occasion. We be careful about what we say and how we act in front of children. You know, growing up, I encountered racism. And some people let that make them into victims and they become very bitter. I remember when I started junior high school, and there were very few black students at the junior high school. And I was on my way to school, walking along the railroad tracks, and a group of young white men came up, and they had sticks, and they started hitting me on the back, and they said, "You're not supposed to be at this school. And if we catch you ever again, we're going to kill you." And then there was my brother and I, we decided to try out for one of the local community football teams. We were the only black kids, and we were a lot faster than anybody else. And the coach was really excited. He says, we're going to win everything this year with these guys. But on our way home, we encountered a group of young white men, and they said, if you guys come back, we're going to drown you in the river. We didn't tell our mother about this stuff because she would have had a heart attack. But those were the things that were happening in our atmosphere as we were growing up. I remember the band teacher, Mr. Mann, he knew I was very good in band, but when I was in the 8th grade, he gave me a C on my report card so that I wouldn't have the highest academic achievement in the 8th grade and get the special award. But to his chagrin, band didn't count. So so I got it anyway. But my mother always emphasized to us, don't allow those kinds of things to let you judge an entire group of people. And see, that's where those family values come in. Some people allow these kinds of incidents to embitter them and to make them resentful of certain people. But the fact of the matter is, people are people. And you can't really judge a person by their external covering unless you're really stupid. Think about it. I mean, what makes a person who they are? Is it the color of their skin, the texture of their hair, the shape of their nose, the size of their lips? Or is it their brain? And you see, that's something that really came clear to me as a neurosurgeon operating on people from every part of the world. The good thing was I didn't have to learn different techniques for different people. You peel the skin back and you take the skull off and you go in there. That's the thing that makes them who they are. It's not all the other stuff. And that's the way God made us. Because, God is gracious. And he gave us variety. Can you imagine how boring it would be if everybody looked exactly like you? Think about that. In some cases, it would be a national disaster. So he was very kind to give us variety. And we're the ones who make it into a problem. It's not a real problem. It's a completely artificial problem. And that's something that I learned, and I think that was a large part of what my mother taught me. But she also taught us not to be victims. You're only a victim if you think you're a victim. Then you begin to act like a victim, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the person who has the most to do with what happens to you is not somebody else who's putting an obstacle in the way. It's you. You're the person who has the most to do with what happens to you by deciding what you are going to let affect you. What are you going to allow to change your life, to direct your pathway in life? You get to make that decision. And that is an enormous privilege. The other thing that has happened to our families, and I hate to say this, but the women's movement taught women that you're not as valuable if you're a stay-home mom as you are if you're in the C-suite of a corporation. Nothing could be further from the truth. The role of a mother is the most important role that you can possibly have. And, I'm thankful that my wife, who has a degree from Yale and a degree from Johns Hopkins, said, you know, I'm going to put career aside and I'm going to stay home and take care of the kids until they are all gone, and then I'll go back and do something at that point. And it made the biggest difference in their lives because, you know, as a busy neurosurgeon, I wouldn't have as much time to do things as most people did, but she filled in the gap for them. And they really appreciated that. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all of those moms who know that they have a special role to play that God has given them. And there is nothing like the relationship between a child and their mother. And we should elevate that, and we should praise that. And if you want to be an executive and be in the C-suite, that's great. But it doesn't make you any better than that woman who is bringing up that child in the admonition of God in our society. You know, the victimhood, though, it goes all the way back to our original parents, Adam and Eve, because Adam did not become a victim. Yes, he fell prey to the schemes of Satan, but other than one little victimhood where he said, the woman you gave me did it. But for the most part, he just manned up. He realized he was going to have to go out and work by the sweat of his brow. He had many children, and he didn't sit around and continue to blame his wife and to blame Satan. He manned up. And that really is a key to success in our society. Just taking responsibility, not always trying to blame somebody else.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. Hit the bell for notifications. If you want to, leave a comment.